Everybody, it's Dr. Joe's in the house on this interesting Wednesday. Hope you're doing fine wherever you are. And we're going to start this session. Just getting Instagram folks on. Welcome to everybody on Instagram and to another Wealth Wednesday with Dr. Joe. So we got a great session lined up as usual. And today we're going to kind of talk about, you know, getting stressed out and how you can reduce your stress level being a housing provider, landlord, and and all that stuff as part of your buy and hold strategy. The reason why I chose this topic was that I was speaking to a fellow landlord not too long ago, and I told them that I do Section 8. That's what I specialize in. And they gave me a dressing down, I suppose, saying, "How could you do that? That's crazy. Those people are nightmares. It's just drama, chaos, confusion." I tried it before, he said, and it was the worst thing I ever did. It's too much stress, too much frustration. And these tenants are never happy. And I have problems with dealing with the housing authority. It was all going on for a little while. And what it dawned on me was that his experience obviously was a negative one. And but the more important thing was that I mean, I have a portfolio, as you know. I don't have those stress levels. I don't have them. I mean, every now and then, yeah, you get some difficult, situations, but for the most part, it's fine. So there is a way whereby you can be a housing provider, landlord, buy and hold investor without having the stress level that other people have, and also have that steady stream of cash, which is, I think, is what we all are desiring in terms of passive income and so on. So I thought it would be, appropriate for me to have a session just on that. Stop the stress and share with you my framework on how I have, happy tenants and a reliable stream of rental income. But as usual, before we get too far, for those people who got some questions about real estate investing, please put them in the chat box and I'll get to you in about 20, 25 minutes. Anything to do with real estate investing, any problems, issues, challenges that you're facing, you want to kind of bounce it back with me and have leverage my 30, 35-year experience, go to the chat box, put it in there. Also, if you want to deep dive on the situation that you are facing, and I had on today with Nestor. Nestor's a regular on. I don't know if he's on today, but Nestor's a regular on this program, and we had a one-on-one session this afternoon. Very, very good, I think. And so if you're listening, Nestor, feel free to share your thoughts, and we'll take it from there. So anyway, today we're going to talk about stress and how do you stop the stress, and share with you a framework for having happy tenants and cash flow. Okay, so what's the real cost of ignoring tenant management? And my thing is that most of the problems that we all have are tenant related. And the root of it is probably you've probably got the wrong tenant in the house in the first place. But it's human beings as opposed to property. So I don't call it property management. It's more, if anything, tenant management. And so what's the real cost of ignoring tenant management? That's the question. Many investors get into real estate, obviously, with a dream of passive income, wealth creation, financial freedom, and so on. But the reality is, for a lot of people, works out to be sleepless nights, missed rent payments, high turnover, and the exhausting grind of dealing with problem tenants, tenant problems. The truth is that tenant management, which is an often ignored piece of real estate investing, is the difference, in my opinion, between the steady cash flow and constant chaos. The difference between steady cash flow and chaos is your ability to manage tenants or tenant relationships. Too often, investors pour their energies into things like acquisition, the financing, the rehab. They pour all their time, effort, and energies towards the front end stuff, which is the acquisition, getting the monies together, navigating the rehab, and the back end is almost an afterthought. Now, I'm not saying that acquisition, financing, and renovations are not important. Of course, they're important. Because if you want, but however, if you want long-term stability, okay, the key is going to have satisfied, responsible tenants. There's no other way. You got to have satisfied, responsible tenants. So without that, without strong tenant relationships, you're going to have multiple vacancies. Your cash flow is going to eventually erode and disappear. And the dream of financial freedom, financial independence turns into a nightmare of stress. Okay. So real estate isn't just built on buying the property, it's sustained. I underline the word sustained through the people who live in your home. Okay. And that's why it's a very, very important topic. Every successful investor eventually, I mean, whether you like it or not, eventually you'll figure it out that happy tenants are long-term tenants. Happy tenants are long-term tenants, and long-term tenants, what it does, it gives you consistent income, fewer vacancies, and reduced expenses. The cost of turnover is very, very expensive. You got to paint the place again, you got to clean it again. There's no income coming through. It's very time consuming and so on. So you've got to figure this thing out. Okay. So you've got to, investors who fail to grasp this end are always reacting to problems, and you get your expenses really chopped off. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Talk about the framework, the framework for flipping the script from stressed out landlord to a strategic investor. It's based on lessons that I've learned and lessons that others have learned who've succeeded, and those who have failed, and those who have lived through the good, the bad, and the ugly of this whole experience. As usual, I'm breaking into six parts, and 1 through 6. The first part I'm going to talk about is why tenant management is the hidden wealth lever. Why is tenant management the hidden wealth lever? This is something that is never or very seldom talked about in the guru circuit. When they talk about financial freedom, financial independence, they never talk about this, but it's really the key. And the question is, are you building equity while your cash flow leaks through poor tenant management? Are you building equity while your cash flow leaks? So you hold the house, the property is going up in value, but your cash flow, because you have turnovers, you have problems with the tenants, leaks. Okay, so appreciation and equity growth, that's exciting. We all like it, when the property value goes up and out that we own. We bought something today for 100,000. 10 years from now, it's worth 100, 200,000 or so. You're excited by that. But we love to talk about how the value of the property has increased over time. But the thing is that appreciation, you really realize that when you sell the home, when you sell the property, cash flow is what pays the bills, funds in reinvestments, and keeps you in the game month after month after month. And the strength of that cash flow rests on one thing and one thing alone: how well you manage your tenants. Not one thing alone, but it's very dependent on how well you manage your tenants. Experienced investors like you and I, hopefully, know that ignoring tenant relationships is like trying to fill a leaky bucket. You can keep pouring in capital, you can pour in money, but until you patch the hole, the results will never hold. Okay, tenants who stay long term drastically reduce your turnover costs, vacancy losses, and a headache of constant repairs. I was going through my numbers now. I'm about 7.5 years I'm averaging per tenant. Okay, 7.5 years per tenant. That's what I'm averaging. So what does that mean? It means that I don't have to have that turnover cost. I only have it once every 7.5 years on average. Obviously, I've got some people who are longer, and I've also got some people who are, shorter as well. But I'm averaging that. So for those people who have turnover costs, let's say every year or two, it means that and turnover cost is about 2 to 3 months lost rent. So, I'm able to contain that. I keep that money in my pocket, whereas the person who can't manage turnover is going to have to shell out this money once every year or once every 2 years. Okay, so they think they're making money, but in reality, they're not making money. In fact, they're losing money. So investors who focus on building strong landlord-tenant relationships really end up with portfolios that keep they're boring. They're boring. You got somebody in there, they've been there 5, 10, 15, 20. My longest tenant is now 28 years. But boring is profitable. Okay, it's not exciting. It just keeps on flowing through, especially if you do Section 8. The painful lessons many have learned is that there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to this thing. Some investors prioritize squeezing out high rents with regard to tenant experiences. And yes, you may be able to increase the rent by another 100, $200 or whatever it is, but the cost of that turnover is going to cost you several thousands of dollars. The results, if you don't contain this, is that you get angry tenants, high turnover, and mounting costs. So the most successful landlords flip this approach. They understand that treating tenants fairly, setting clear expectations, and addressing issues quickly isn't just good ethics, it's sound business. So the good is that steady tenants build steady wealth. The bad is that realizing that it's too late anyway, that frequent turnovers have it can wipe out years of profit. And the ugly, seeing your portfolio become unmanageable because you ignored the single most important lever for cash flow, which is happy tenants. So that's the first one. It's why tenant management is the hidden wealth lever. In my opinion, that's what it is. Okay, so let's go on to number 2. And what is number 2? The cost of tenant turnover. I kind of alluded to that earlier on, so I'll dive into that a bit more detail here. I suppose the question is, what's more expensive, fixing a house or losing a tenant? What's more expensive, fixing a house or losing a tenant? Well, turnover is a silent wealth killer, in my opinion. Every time a tenant moves out, you lose money. You do. There's a vacancy period, often a month or two, when no rent's coming in. Then there's a cost of repainting, repairing, deep cleaning, and replacing carpets or doing some repairs, appliances, etc. The cost of that. And then you got to add in things like advertising, application processing, and the time it takes to find a new tenant, a new renter. And the true cost of turnover becomes really staggering. As I said, it typically, in my experience, minimum 2 months, probably anywhere from 2 to 4 months worth of lost income every time there's a turnover. So if your rent is $3,000, each time you have a turnover, it's going to end up you costing around between $6,000 to $12,000. $6,000 to $12,000 is what it's going to cost you every time you have a turnover. It's staggering. Investors who fail to appreciate the cost of this and they chase short-term gains, it's not in your best interest. The result, so you focus, in my opinion, on making sure you have tenants who stay a long time. Because when they leave, the profit leaves with them. Seasoned landlords have learned that sometimes it's better to keep a good tenant slightly below market rent than to face the full brunt of a turnover cost. The good news is that turnover is largely preventable by maintaining properties well, addressing concerns quickly, and creating positive experiences. Landlords can reduce move-out costs dramatically. The bad is that new investors, if you don't know, you're going to have multiple costly turnovers and turnover costs as well. Okay, so that's number 2 done. Let's move on to number 3 topic, and on reducing stress and increasing cash. And the third one is communications and relationship building. Communications and relationship building. That's something that's often ignored. What? You got to speak to your tenants? What? You got to communicate with them? What? Why? I don't want to do that. All I want is their money. I don't want to see them. I don't want to know them. I don't want to hear from them. I just want their rent money. Well, that approach may not always work in the end. Okay. The question is, how do great landlords turn tenants into long-term partners? How do great landlords turn tenants into long-term partners? Well, tenant relationships thrive on communication. They do. Okay, the landlords who enjoy low turnover and high satisfaction aren't always the ones with the fanciest homes. They're the ones who treat tenants with respect and respond promptly to concerns. A tenant who feels ignored or disrespected or feel like they're being condescended to is far more likely to leave, regardless of how nice the home is. And this is the thing, is that you think you got a great house in a great neighborhood, and the tenant should be happy that they're renting from you. But if you have a pretty shoddy um, you know demeanor or persona, or you are condescending, or you're just not a very nice person, at some point the tenant's going to get sick and tired of you. And although they love the house, they love their neighborhood, they just don't like renting from you. And so, unfortunately, they're going to leave. Things like little gestures sometimes come a long way. Answering calls, responding to emails, following through, builds trust. Tenants who feel valued often repay that respect by taking better care of their property and staying longer. Conversely, neglected landlords quickly gain a reputation that spreads among renters. The good is that investors who leverage communications as a competitive edge can use that to save money and to reduce expenses. The bad stories often come from landlords who assume that tenants would simply, quote unquote, cash flow machines. They were just a means to an end. They were just, quote unquote, doors. I got 20 doors. I got 30 doors. I got 50 doors, whatever. They just see tenants as doors, as opposed to human beings. Those people, and if you have that attitude, you got to be careful. They're human beings at the end of the day. And if you're not careful, they'll leave. So strong landlord-tenant relationships or communications transform the relationships from an adversarial to hopefully a more collaborative. Tenants stop seeing you as just, unquote, the landlord, but see you as somebody who's invested in their well-being, making them more likely to pay on time, stay longer, and care for the home. Okay, so halfway through. And if you got any questions, please put in the chat box. I'm going to get to them very shortly. And anything to do with real estate, put it down. I'll try my best to answer your questions. However, if you want more deep dive, then you can book a one-on-one with me. Go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com. That's www.joeasamoah.com. And you can press the link for Ask Dr. Joe, and you can schedule a one-on-one with me. Okay, so that's number 3 down. Let me just summarize on the 3 so far. Number 1 is why tenant management is a hidden wealth lever. Number 2 is the cost of turnover, and it can be very expensive. And number 3, communications and relationship building is very, very important if you want to reduce stress and increase your cash flow. Okay, let's get on to number 4. Number 4 is the systems that prevent stress before it starts. I have systems in place that hopefully you can be proactive. You can prevent these stressful situations from occurring in the first place. What am I talking about? Well, what if you could solve tenant problems before they even happen? Okay. Well, the best landlords don't just solve problems, they prevent them. I think it was Charlie Munger, I think, who was Buffett's right-hand person until he passed away earlier on, I think this year. Smart investors don't solve problems. Smart investors avoid problems. Okay. So smart landlords, we just try to avoid problems and prevent them from happening. We're proactive, because proactive systems saves time, money, and stress. From detailed moving checklists to regular inspections, successful investors create structures that make tenant management both predictable instead of chaotic. Consider, for example, we have semi-annual inspections. I have semi-annual inspections for my tenant. So instead of waiting for tenants to report a problem, or worse, hiding it from you, savvy landlords, we schedule checkups, okay? And the point there is that we hopefully can identify problems earlier on, and therefore we can take care of them before they run into more expensive things. And also the good things that by checking in with your tenants, meeting with them, you can find out things early if there's any issues. So it gives you time to address them before it gets to a point whereby they're leaving. So tenants who feel looked after, and the homes that tend to remain, I don't say looked after, because that's not your job, is to look after your tenants. No, it's just to I don't know, invest in the relationship. it's worthwhile. You know, moving orientations when they move in, you can set expectations that about what you can expect from them, or what you're expecting from them, what they can expect from you. Walking through a property during moving, explaining how things work, setting clear expectations, eliminates confusion later. Investors who skip this step often face repeated calls or preventable issues, and it's just not good. Okay, so let's move on to number 5, screening. It's an interesting one. Screening and selecting the right tenant. This is a key part of this. I kind of alluded to the beginning. If you do this right, you get the right person in your home, it can significantly reduce your stress level, because many of the problems that you have as a landlord is just that you just got the wrong person in your house. So are you chasing rent or choosing tenants who make rent a guarantee? Okay, so are you choosing tenants who make rent or a guarantee? Okay, what do I mean by that? Tenant screening is one of the most important steps in preventing stress. It is. Investors who rush this step often pay dearly later on. I mean, I get it. You need the money, and the mortgage is due, and you don't find somebody, and then somebody shows up with some cash. They talk a good game, and you rush and you rent to them, only to find out later on it was a big mistake. I.e., you'll pay later, dearly later. A tenant who looks fine on paper but has unstable income, poor rental history, or a lack of references can quickly become a liability. The most successful landlords implement rigorous screening, verify things like income, credit, contact past or previous landlords, and even me, I do home visits. Okay, what this does, it filters out problematic applicants before they become costly tenants. Okay, so the investors who do this tend to have less headaches, less problems, tend to be more stress free, and all due to disciplined screening. The bad stories involve skipping steps, accepting the first applicant to avoid a vacancy, rushing, or ignoring red flags, or desperation. A tenant says, I can move in tonight, tomorrow, here's my money, and shakes a whole bunch of dollar bills in front of you, or $100 bills in front of you. The ugly stories include things like evictions, unpaid rent, and properties left in shambles. That's the consequence of having the wrong person in your home. So screening isn't about perfection. It's about stacking the deck, or stacking the odds in your favor by choosing tenants who are most likely to succeed. Okay, so that's the whole thing. I mean, you don't know. It's nothing 100% guaranteed. But all we're trying to do here is increase the chance of success by having quality people who are likely to pay their rent, take care of the property, and hopefully stay a long time. And finally, number 6, the investor mindset. Okay, your mindset, that could also be a big feature or factor in your success or in your stress level. Okay, so the question is, are you a problem solver or a problem preventer? You know which one I am. Are you a problem solver? I mean, there's nothing wrong with solving problems. I rather prevent problems by not having them in the first place. Okay, so at the heart of stress-free investing is mindset. Too many landlords operate in reactive mode, constantly putting out fires. However, the most successful investors shift their mindset from reacting to preventing. They invest their time in building systems, screening well, and communicating clearly. So they rarely face these emergencies that other people tend to have. This mindset shift is what separates hobby landlords, the sort of part-time landlords, or landlords who kind of just winging it, from true professionals. Hobbyists, people wing it, see tenant management as an inconvenience. Professionals like you and I hopefully see it as the foundation of long-term wealth. The difference is night and day, mindset shift. Okay, investors who adopt a proactive mindset find that their portfolios run more smoothly, their stress decreases, and their tenants tend to stay longer. The bad lessons from all this is that ignoring this shift, believing that problems are part of the business, it's not necessarily part of the business, and accepting this as normal. It's not normal to be always in a state of stress. The ugly is watching burnout, I've seen landlords get burnt out. They're done with this thing. They want to just sell their portfolio and be done with it. Spend a day down a landlord-tenant court, and I think you'll understand what I'm talking about. So by changing how you think about tenant management, you not only save yourself stress, but also position yourself for scalable, sustainable success. So, in conclusion, again, I'm getting down to the end now. So, if you got some questions, please put in the chat box. The question is tenant stress keeping you from building true wealth? Is tenant stress keeping you from building true wealth? Well, real estate investing is not just about buying properties, it's about managing people. Tenant management is the linchpin, the key, the foundation of long-term success, and investors who master this enjoy steady cash flows, fewer vacancies, and a reputation that attracts quality tenants. Those who ignore it often burn out, bleed cash, and wonder why their quote-unquote investments never feel truly profitable. Okay, the good news is that stress-free investing is possible. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's possible by understanding the true costs of turnover, building strong communications, implementing preventable systems, screening rigorously, and shifting your mindset. You can transform your portfolio into a well-oiled machine. So you'll stop putting out fires and start enjoying freedom and stability that you deserve. And the most valuable lessons, though, come from those who've been there before. Those who've been there before. Those people have lots of experience. Investors who learned the hard way that ignoring tenant management destroys wealth, and those who discovered that mastering it creates it. So their stories, your stories, hopefully are good ones, and not the bad nor the ugly. But together, they form a framework of what works. So that, my friend, is it for this session of the education part of today. And so let's get down. So again, let me just say, if you've got any questions, please put in the chat box. I'm going to get to them in a couple of minutes. Anything to do real estate investing, any deals that you're working on, any problems that you're facing, put them down. And if you want to shoot me an email, you can reach me at joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com. And if you want to book a one-on-one with me, go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com. That's www.joeasamoah.com. And you can, press the Ask Dr. Joe button and schedule a time that works for you. I think next Saturday, I will be going to the Caribbean for a vacation. And I'll be going to Dominica, the island of Dominica in the Eastern Caribbean. So I'll be there for almost 2 weeks. And then I'll be going to the Own It, Live It conference in Atlanta. Erica Brown's invited me. I'm going to be one of the keynote speakers there. And I'm going to talk about recession-proof real estate investing. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. So if you're in Atlanta, feel free to check it out, sign up. And I'll see you at the OILI conference in Atlanta, 6th, 7th, and 8th of November. So, okay, let's get down to the questions, Q&A. Let's have a look. Comments. And let's have a look. Dow2. Hey, Dow2. Hope you're doing well in sunny Phoenix. Hope life is good for you. Okay, who do we have next? Katie. Hey, Katie. Hope you're doing well. I think you're in Colorado, I think you were. And we have Carlise. Hope you're doing well, Carlise. And let's have a look. Oh, Nestor. Hey, Nestor. Great session today, Dr. Joe. I appreciate it, and we'll keep you posted. We had a good session with Nestor and I. We had a one-on-one, and he's talking about his situation up in, I think, Ohio. Yeah, it's good. Good session. If anybody, again, it got me thinking, Nestor, that, there's really no need for a lot of investors to kind of, I just call it waste time. I mean, there's a lot of scenarios I've experienced, and it's really important, I think, to leverage my experience so that way, hopefully, it can get you, not just you, but everybody. You can leverage on people's experiences so you don't have to recreate the wheel. So we had a great session today, and I shared with him some action items, action plans for getting his property rented. That's with Nestor. Keep me posted. Okay, the landlord across the street from me said, as long as I get my $1,800 a month, I don't care what the tenant does. The landlord across the street said, as long as I get my $1,800, I don't care what the tenant does. Well, I beg to differ. Let me just carry on here. Would you take a good tenant paying $500 a month or a bad tenant paying $2,500 a month? Well, I'll answer that in a couple of ways. I've had good tenants. I've had bad tenants. Hands down, good tenants wins the day. At the end of the day, there's nothing better than what I call peace of mind. And where you don't have to get stressed out over anything. You can live a life. You can just go about your business and do what's important for you. If you don't have peace of mind, you are stressed, you are frustrated, you are angry, you feel like people are getting over you. And that's what happens when you get bad tenants. Sometimes, especially if you're in a jurisdiction where the landlord tenant laws are pro-tenant. Because they can get over on you and there's nothing you can do about it. They can avoid paying their rent and it may take you several months to get them out. They can destroy your house, trash your house on the way out, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't sue them because they don't have any money, and so on. So I've had bad tenants. It's not worth it. If you have too many bad tenants, they're going to drive you out of this business. They will. And you'll say it's not worth it because it's not. And so I will gladly take less rent. I don't know about 500, but I'd gladly take less rent to get a right person than to get more rent and have the wrong person in the house. I'll give you stories. Tenants who've destroyed houses I've had, trashed it on the way out. Tenants who I've had to evict. In the process of evicting them, it takes several months. So there's no income for several months. Tenants who destroy the house, tenants who are a nightmare for the neighbors. The neighbors then start calling you and say, get these people out of here, and so on. There's no peace. And so you may be thinking that you're doing good because you're getting more money, but it's hell for everybody else. And next thing you know, your neighbors are going to gang up against you. They can call the city on you. They call the police on you, and all for an extra $300-400 a month. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. And it's not. So I'd rather take my time, get the right person, and then rush it, get some short-term money, and then end up, losing money in things. So I disagree with your landlord across the street. It does matter who's in your house. This is your biggest investment. This is an investment of $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 investment. Okay, if you don't care who's in there, I feel sorry for them, because the human asset, which is the tenant, can destroy the physical asset, which is the property, very easy. And next thing, you thought that you had an investment that was worth $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. It's now not worth that because it's been destroyed. They can set fire to your house and trash everything. I've had some tenants who, well, not me, but I've heard stories where they pour cement down the toilets because they were angry. Okay, if you want to deal with that kind of stuff because you got $300 more in rent, that's up to you. I just don't want to do it. I'd rather have $300 less and not have to worry about those things. But that's just me sharing my experiences over these many years. Okay, let's keep going. Again, if you got some questions, please put in the chat box and I'll get to you shortly. Hello, Dr. Joe. This is Ty. Are you noticing that voucher amounts are going down by a couple $100 next year? Okay. Let's have a look at follow. When you do the tenant house visits, how do you know whether they are truly clean and tidy versus just cleaned the house before you visit? I always get asked this question. Okay, let's take the first one. Are you noticed that voucher rents are going down next year? A couple $100. I'm not aware of that. I haven't heard anything official from at least my housing authority that I deal with. Maybe it's happening where you are. One thing I do know is that HUD's budget will go down. There is no doubt about that. And so the funding for the housing choice voucher program, the Section 8 program, will go down. I have no doubt, I'm not delusional about that. So if the funds are cut from HUD, it's going to trickle down to the local housing authorities where they have to make do with less money. So how they're going to do that will depend on your local housing authorities. So how they respond in one area may be different how they respond in a different area. So it's not always uniform across the board. I know in my areas, I've never had a situation where they reduced the rents. I know what they've done in the past is to not allow any rent increases. They cut staff. They maybe ask the tenants to pay more. So there are lots of different things that they could do. They could cut down on projects, that they were thinking of doing. But the bottom line is they got less money, so they have to do more with less. And if you don't have relationships within the housing authority, and some of the people that you used to deal with are now left, now you've got fewer people to do the same amount of work. So so something's going to have to give, which means that unless you have relationships, sometimes your documents, your phone calls, your letters, emails won't get answered because they're too busy. So that's I'm not familiar with that one, Ty. But again, how they operate where you are could be very different to how they're going to do it where we are. But yeah, it may happen. They may decide to reduce rents. So we'll see where that goes. When you do your tenant house visits, how do you know whether they're truly clean and tidy or just cleaned the house before your visit? Well, how do I respond to that one? I respond in a couple of ways. One, I don't just show up at people's houses and just say, hey, I just happen to be in the neighborhood, and so let me come inside and walk through your house. I don't do that. I usually have an appointment, set up a time, date. They know I'm coming, and I show up. Now, the question is, did they clean up the house just before you showed up? I'm going to answer that in this way. Some people, unfortunately, don't know that their house is dirty. I'll say that again. Some people, surprising, don't know that their house is dirty. So some people don't know that their house is a mess. Because they live there. They're used to it. It's just like the scenario with if you have a pet, let's say a dog or a cat in your home. Now, after a while, you get immune to the smell, the odor of the pet. Okay, you can't smell it. You're used to it. But somebody who walks into your house for the first time could immediately smell there's something going on here. There's an odor from the pet. So somebody who lives there may not think that their house is that bad, and so on. Yes, they can do some superficial cleaning, but I go to the kitchen. I open, I look behind the shower curtains. Check the floors, check the walls. If there's any holes in there, if there's holes in the walls, they're not going to clean that up. You're going to see it. If there's scuff marks all over the place, if the carpets are worn out, then they can't hide that. Okay. If the bathtub is dirty, they're probably not going to clean it. The yard, if it looks maintained or not maintained, they're probably not going to take care of that as well. So there's certain things there are certain telltale signs that you can tell whether they're trying to impress you or whether this is how they live. And I'm pretty good at that. I'm not the best, but I'm pretty good at it. I can usually spot it a mile off. But yeah, that's how I tell. I just go to the home. And my thing is that how that person keeps their house today is how your house will be in 3 months. So most landlords don't go to the people's houses. So they don't know how this person lives. And I can tell you one thing, just because someone's got a good job, just because somebody's got a nice car, just because somebody drives nice or wears nice clothes, doesn't mean that their house is clean and tidy. There's no correlation whatsoever. Just because someone's got a good job earning high income doesn't mean they keep their homes. And likewise, just because somebody has low income or no income doesn't mean that their house is dirty. No, it doesn't. There's no correlation. I've seen tenants the house is spotless, and they have no income. They don't have a job, or they have minimum wage jobs, or whatever it is. They got multiple children, but the house is spotless. You won't know that unless you go there, and that's why I like to go, and that's why I don't understand how a lot of landlords delegate the tenant screening or tenant selection to some algorithm that spits out a result, rent to this person. I don't understand that one. I think it's ridiculous, but hey, that's how they do it. So anyway, hopefully I answer your question, Ty. Dow 2, I know it's state dependent, but if you've ever had to take a tenant to court after a move out, is there a maximum amount of time you have to take the tenant to court? Okay. Let me read that again. I know it's state dependent. It probably is. But if you've ever had to take a tenant to court after a move out, is there a maximum amount of time? Yeah, I assume there's a statute of limitations wherever you are. So I think the scenario you're describing, Dow 2, is that you had a tenant, the tenant moved out, and they either owed you money or caused damages in excess of your security deposit. So what do? You got really two choices, really. You can either put it down to experience and don't, just keep moving on, or you can go after them. Depending on how much is owed, depending on the amount of assets that this person have, you're gonna have to make a business decision. I've only gone after one tenant once. Most of the time, it's just not worth it because most of my tenants don't have much money anyway. And so by the time and effort and the costs associated with taking them to court, I may get a judgment. But if someone doesn't have any money, it's like squeezing blood out of a stone. They don't have it. So, you got a worthless piece of paper, which is your judgment, but you can't collect. So you're going to have to make a business decision whether it's worthwhile to go after the tenant. And if it does, then you go after them. But be prepared that I know that with small claims, there's a dollar amount max that you can go after somebody in small claims court, which is usually the cheapest way because you don't usually need an attorney. You just have to bring your evidence and just argue your case in front of a judge, and the judge makes a decision. So I've done it once. I did get a judgment, and I did collect from the tenant because the tenant had a job, and so I got monies from their salary. It was like I don't know, what do you call it? When they take it from your salary. That's what I petitioned their job, and that's how I got paid. So it can work, but you're gonna have to make a case. I know there are some services now where you can put your rent into report your rent to the credit bureaus. So if they don't pay their rent, then it's a ding on their credit report. So they're more likely to pay you as well. Okay, Carlis. See you in Atlanta next month. Okay, so hopefully see you in Atlanta, Carlis. And I'll be there. I'll be one of the speakers, one of the keynotes, I suppose. So it should be exciting. We had a great time last year. Shout out to Erica. And, great event. If you're in the Atlanta area, you should go. It's a good one. And I'll be there. And we had a good time last year. She invited me to Cancun, Mexico for a part of her mastermind earlier this year, and she's graciously invited me to be a speaker this year as well. So look forward to it. Ty, again, if you got some questions, please put in the chat box. I got a couple more minutes. I'm going to wrap it up. Do you know if this administration is pulling back on funding for Section 8 for the next fiscal year? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they are. As I said, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. This time around is different. I think this administration, they are definitely aggressively letting people know their priorities, what they like and what they don't like. And I'm pretty sure that they're not a great fan of Section 8 program. So I expect that the HUD budget will go down. I don't know exactly how much. And it's going to have an impact, obviously. What that impact will be, I don't know. But I've been through this about 35 years. And one thing I know in 35 years, I've been through some of these sort of, shutdowns and political battles and so on. I've never had a situation, never, ever, ever in 35 years where my money was not paid to me through the Section 8 program. Never, never a month, never in 35 years. So, but who knows what's going to happen next month? I don't know. But based on history, it's never happened. I always get the money. So, we have a contractual relationship, a contractual agreement with the federal government. And, there are landlords out there who have multiple properties. And if they don't get paid, then their recourse is to evict tenants. So the question is going to be, well, is it good public policy to have most vulnerable people in society, which is low-income families with children, whether public policies to throw them on the streets? I don't know. I don't think that's a public policy because it costs more to deal with that problem than it is just to pay you rent. So I don't know. I'm not a politician, but I expect some choppy waters for the next 3.5 years or so, as it pertains to the Section 8 program, as it pertains to programs that's not their priority. Let's just put it that way. Okay. Emic J. Hello, Dr. Joe. Do you still offer the JP program? I have been following you for more years than I want to admit. I'm ready to dive into your teaching and get started with scaling my business. Okay. I don't do the JV program as I used to do before. I'm more into one-on-one, where I'm helping people, those people who are ready to execute, pull the trigger. I enjoy working with people like that, as opposed to people who are just sort of collecting information and thinking about it, kicking tires. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'd rather just put my energies on those people who are ready to execute. They're psychologically ready, financially ready, emotionally ready to let's get on with this thing and let's start building wealth. So that's why I focus more of my attention on is for those. So if that's something that sounds like you, Emic, then maybe we can have a conversation. I can talk about some of the things which I'm currently doing to help people. Shout out to Ben, one of the prospective clients who I'm going to be helping with on his project. Okay, so so reach out to me, Emic. Shoot me an email, and if necessary, I can do a short 15-minute one-on-one with you. We can discuss some options. I'm not sure where you're based, Emic, but let me know. Katie, directly tied to today's key points: influence, Science and Practice by John Cialdini, one of my favorite books, is all about understanding what drives people to trust, commit, and cooperate. Okay. So there's this book called Influence, Science and Practice by John Cialdini. I hope I pronounced that right. Apparently, it's one of Katie's favorite books. It's all about understanding what drives people to trust, commit, and that is very important. It's how do essentially it's how do people tick? Because if you understand human nature, if you understand why people trust, commit, and cooperate, then it can adjust. You can adjust accordingly because not everybody is the same. I agree totally. One thing I've learned is that by having a collaborative relationship with my tenants, where I try to create win-wins. I let them know that I'm happy that they're in my home. I let them know that I appreciate them. I provide gifts, Mother's Day gifts, Christmas presents, birthday cards. I do that because I want them to know that I'm happy for them. I'm happy that they live in my home, and I'll be the best landlord, at least strive to be the best landlord they've ever had. And when I do that, several things happen. I don't have the same amount of problems that other landlords have. And I'm in a very pro-tenant jurisdiction. So if you don't do this right, I mean, the court system can run rings around you. It could take you 6 months, a year, year and a half, 2 years to evict somebody. Okay. And and if you want to see stress, you spend a day in the landlord tenant court. My God, it's just an exercise in it's a horror show. Of all the things that so if you want to see stress, you go down there. And I think it's just a result of relationships, failed relationships. So yes, you're absolutely right, Katie. You have to understand people and what triggers them, and then you act accordingly and try to create win-win scenario. It's not a zero sum game where I win, you lose. No, sometimes you can get win-wins. Okay, second part for landlords. Grasping the significance of human behavior is essential for preventing tenant issues. Yes, it is. Reducing turnover, avoiding stress, building long-term rental relationships. Highly recommend. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think you hit. I agree totally. Is that as landlords, the traditional landlord systems is I don't want to see you, I don't want to know you, I don't want to care about you, I don't want to know anything about you. All I want is your money. All I want is your rent. Just pay the rent, and I mean, let's not make it complicated. Just pay the rent, and that's enough. Okay, that's the traditional landlord type approach mindset, and I just feel that is a recipe for disaster. And these are human beings. You have to understand human behavior, and you have to create win-win scenario if you want to have tenants that stay 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, as opposed to tenants that stay a year, and every year you're having a turnover, and so on. Okay. And Mick, I am based in Atlanta. Okay, well, I'll reach out by email. Yes, reach out to me if you're in Atlanta. Then maybe you want to come to the Own It, Live It, OILI conference, and I'll be there. I'll be one of the speakers, and we can connect. And if I can help you out, Emic, I'm more than happy to do so. Carlise, yes, lots of smiles. Okay. Okay, it's time 7:55. Thought I'd share as I found such significance. I've gifted this book to likely 15 people and have reread so many times, interested in that principles can benefit all relationships. Yes, 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 yes. Well, maybe you can send me a book, Katie, or maybe send me the Cliff Notes version, or the link on Amazon. I'll read that and decide whether I should buy the book, or if they have an audio book, maybe I'll listen to the audio book. I'm always learning. Always. That's why I love this Wealth Wednesdays. Hopefully I'm sharing quality information to you, but I'm also benefiting because I do a lot of research as preparation for this live stream. And as I do that, my research, I'm also learning. And so I've learned a lot just by doing this. And hopefully I've been able to provide you with quality content. Okay, send your address. Well, shoot me an email. I'm not going to put my address on for the world to see, but shoot me an email, Katie, at joeasimo.com, joeasimo.com, and I'll be more than happy to share with you my address where you can mail the book to. So it's joe@joeasimo.com. And for everybody else, if you want to book a one-on-one with me, like what Nesta did today, you can go to my website, www.joeasimo.com, www.joeasimo.com, and just press the Ask Dr. Joe button. And then I'll do that. Okay. Ha ha. Fair regarding public address, Dr. Joe. Yeah, I don't want everyone to know where I'm living. I don't know who's going to watch this, and so on. So shoot me an email. I'll definitely share that information to you. Okay, I think it's time. 7 o'clock. It's about almost 8 o'clock now. So again, if you had a good time, just let me know. Shoot me an email. And let's have a look. I'm going to check Instagram, see what's on Instagram. Love your information, Dr. Joe. I used your screening process for my tenants 14 years ago. They haven't been late, not one time. Wow. That's from C2L William on Instagram. And Peacock Marshall, question for you. Before you leave, Doc. I have 10K left on a rental and I'm interested in buying multiple doors with equity. Any suggestion? Okay, I have before you. I have 10K left. Okay, so you got $10,000 on a rental, and it looks like you want to buy more rental properties, and you got 10K. Well, I don't know what area you're in. So in wherever you are, if hopefully it's an affordable area, because 10K obviously you can't buy a house for cash for 10K, but you may be able to put money towards down payment and closing costs, and for 10K. But yeah, that's probably a detailed question. You're trying to build multiple doors, so it looks like you're in the apartment or commercial space. So that's generally a little bit more expensive. So what I would suggest is, identify the market that you want to be in, identify the price point, look at the amenities. If it's not enough money, you only got 10K, you may want to look into private investors, partners, to raise the funds, because obviously you're going to need acquisition funds. You're probably going to need renovation funds, possibly holding cost funds, and so on. So you're probably going to need some partnerships or some additional money. So I'll definitely look into getting some potential private investors and things like that. Okay, Peacock Marshall. Okay, I'm in DC, but I purchased all my houses in the Midwest. Okay, so you're in DC, but you purchased in the Midwest. That's because I say if you're buying in DC for 10K, that's you got some connections, which I would like. Shoot me an email, Peacock Marshall, and I'll see if I can help you out. But yeah, if you got 10K, you're probably going to need some additional monies. And if you got a good financing in place, either from DSCR loans or from hard money or from other types of funding sources, you may also need private investors as well to pop up the difference. No, I have 10K left on a rental property. Okay, I'll shoot you an email. Thank you. Yeah, shoot me an email. You got my email address. It's joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com, and I'll see what I can do. My friends, I think that's it for 8 o'clock for this week. I will see you next week on the Wealth Wednesday, probably my last Wealth Wednesday before I go on vacation next Saturday to Dominica in the Eastern Caribbean, which will be my 5th country I'll be visiting this year. I've still got one more to go. I've still got another couple of months left, so hopefully I'll do another country before the end of the end of the month, end of the year, I suppose. My goal is to do 6 countries this year. I think I'm getting there. Okay, guys, I'll see you next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Take care. Bye for now.